The new always becomes old. The sun retreats and the shadows begin to loom. And the clinging light leads us to what can be next. We've been here before. On the bridge that divides us from who we were and who we are about to be. And even though we've crossed this bridge before, we forgot how brave we have been, and it's time to remember. We wrestle with our saboteur, the voice that prevents us from letting go, the weights that keep us planted. Fear, regret, shame. We take a deep breath and we let go. And we step into the mystery. We let our dreams live. We let them breathe and dance and transform. We give the song we want to sing permission to escape us. Vulnerability paints with beauty and honesty. In accepting and celebrating this vulnerability, we find the audacity to be brave. We find the worth to take up space. We find the thrill of being who we want to be. We let the abstracts become concrete and the ground becomes firmer for the walk ahead. When the chaos of letting go settles, we know that it is time for action. We realize that embracing the stains of letting go decorates us with authenticity, an authenticity that liberates, empowering us to move forward, to be seen, to be heard, to step out of the darkness, to step through the mystery and let your light shine.
Born in Brooklyn and based in Miami, Jennifer Grace focuses on combining the gritty self-determination of her birthplace with the inspiration and spirit of South Florida. Her diverse background and experience as an actress, Wall Street banker, entrepreneur, mother, and author has made her a favorite mentor to a diverse array of clients, from small business owners to artists, single mothers, and prominent business leaders. Based on the famed Stanford University Master's Degree course, Creativity in Business, the program, CIJ Clarity Catalyst, helps students get crystal clear on who they are and have the confidence and the courage to go after what they want. It empowers them with practical mindfulness tools and proven emotional intelligence techniques to take their lives and their businesses to the next level. The Best of Miami Award winner consistently sold out courses at the Standard Miami Beach as their resident dream coach, earned her the title of Miami's Best Life Coach in 2016 and 17 by Miami New Times after winning Broward's Best Life Coach in 2015 by Broward and Palm Beach New Times. Her goal-oriented approach to mindfulness recently earned her the role of Prada's first ever mindset coach. She also works with corporations as a mindset coach such as Facebook, Turner, HCI, Y Code, and EO, Entrepreneur Organization. Over the last 8 years, she has also hosted mindfulness retreats and has traveled to 15 different destinations, including Bali, India, and Africa. She and her retreat participants have raised over $50,000 to help communities in need worldwide as part of her Give Back retreats. In addition to her chart-topping Hay House radio program, Jennifer's recent work has been focused on certifying over 500 plus coaches on how to powerfully deliver the Clarity Catalyst course and build a profitable group coaching business and brand. In 2019, her TEDx speech, Why Mindfulness Should Be Just as Important as Math in Our School Systems, debuted on TED.com. Drawing from her inspiration as a mother, Jennifer Grace redesigned her mindset curriculum for kids and teens in 2016. As of today, she has certified over 250 coaches to deliver Insight for Life for kids and teens, her youth coaching curriculum. She has been featured on several morning shows, NBC6, The Balancing Act on Lifetime TV, San Diego Living, CT Style, and featured in Huffington Post, Ocean Drive, Mind Body Green, and on radio, The Jenny McCarthy Show, and Elvis Duran. Her goal continues to be to inspire and empower through her tried and true tools for achieving life goals and mindfulness while improving her students' overall quality of life.
Welcome, everybody, to the Shine Your Light Summit. Woohoo! I am so excited to see this beautiful community today. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. So everyone, please put into the chat where in the world you are tuning in from. All right, let's see. Where are we? Florida, San Diego, Maryland, Texas, Washington, Canada, California, Arkansas, Michigan, Wisconsin, New York, my hometown, California, Miami, Minnesota. Oh my God, there's so many people. I think we've got a few hundred people on here today. Welcome, welcome everybody. This is amazing. Well, I am tuning in here from St. Augustine, Florida. And as a digital nomad, one never knows where I might be in the world, but I am here right now and I am absolutely loving it. We have a powerful day in store for all of you. So many incredible speakers, so much great content to help you all build your businesses, your brands, launch your retreats, do your TED Talks, podcasts. Oh my gosh, it's going to be amazing. So today is kind of like a little sneak peek into something I have been working on for the last few years called the Shine Your Light Academy. I have been teaching all of these amazing courses for many, many years by themselves. But this year in 2023, I am launching for the very first time all of these programs together. They're going to be called the Shine Your Light Academy. And over 2023, each class is going to be 8 weeks long. We're going to have the Speakers Catalyst, the Book Catalyst, the Retreat Catalyst, the Podcast Catalyst, the Social Media Catalyst. So at the end of today's summit, if you want to learn how to sign up for the full academy or just take a few courses, I will show you how. Plus, everybody that attends the summit or listens to the recording this week will have huge discounts for the program bundles. And even if you don't join the academy, you are going to get so much content, so much information today. You're going to be mind blown. And of course, we've got gifts and prizes to give away today. We're going to be giving away 5 prizes, big gifts throughout the day, valued at about $1,500 each. And then, of course, at the end of the day, before we wrap up, boom, the grand prize will be awarded, which is a 5-day retreat to Costa Rica with me, valued at $3,500. But the catch is, guys, you're going to have to pay really close attention. And after each session, I will ask you from that session and a little question, and the person who types in the answer fastest will be the winner. But I will say this, you cannot win more than one of the $1,500 prizes, but everyone, even if you win one of the 5 prizes, everyone will be eligible to win the grand prize, which will be at the very, very end. All right. So this is going to be so much fun. But for right now, I am excited to introduce our first guest. Anthony Trucks is a former foster child, NFL football player, competitor on American Ninja Warrior, author, shift coach, podcast coach, and entrepreneur. From foster care to the NFL to successful business owner, Anthony Trucks has accomplished what statistics would say is impossible. As a speaker and identity shift coach, Anthony teaches people how to access their power of their identity, tap into their full potential, and make shift happen. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Anthony is an incredible everything, and I'm just so grateful that you agreed to do this amazing summit with me. So I've been listening to your podcast recently because that is something that you're supposed to do when you interview somebody. You're supposed to listen to their podcast.
That or a book or anything.
Yeah. And what's the name of your podcast?
The name was two of them. One's called the Shift Starter Daily, which is a daily podcast I do. And the other one's called Awe Shift, the Awe Shift Good and Awe Shift Bad Moments we experience, and essentially how successful people make shift happen.
I love it. Awe Shift. And how did you come up with that particular name? Did it just hit you one day, or you just?
It did, actually. It was completely random. There was no rhyme or reason. I think there was something around like the idea of I was playing with a list of words that I could utilize in some manner that tied the word shift into it because of identity shift being my kind of like the anchor of the brand. And then at some point I was like, oh, shift. And I go, oh, let's throw it out there. And all of a sudden it was AWW, SHIFT is the actual thing. And when I give keynotes, in fact, that's my callback. Like, if you know what I'm talking about, let me get all shift. And so like everybody gets, we have some fun
Love
with it.
That. That's amazing. And so, why should I listen to you? Just kidding.
Ooh, look at that. That's a good question. That's the first one I ask.
He's the one. Every time he has a guest on Awe Shift, he asks that question right off the bat. And the question is, well, actually, why don't you say the way that you tee it up? Because I think it's brilliant.
Say I'm walking around town, wherever you happen to find yourself, and I sit at this coffee shop, and this cool, amazing woman with these beautiful glasses sits down next to me. She has no idea who I am, and me, her, and for some reason, she feels compelled to turn and start talking to me. In your opinion, this person's you. Why should I listen to you?
And then now, do they know that you're going to ask that, or you just like nail them?
99% of the time they do not. Some people do listen in advance, but even if they do, there's no definitive way to answer the question, because the reason I start with that is it lets me know where you're at right now. Because some people could be a little feisty and they're like in this mode of like, I'm dope, and they'll let you know that. And then some people are in their heart and they'll go, well, the reason you should listen to me is maybe you shouldn't listen to me, And so it's the starter for the conversation. And usually they'll share something that has to do with what they see themselves to be great at or not so great at. And then I can lead in pretty quickly and go, well, where did that come from? And so it kind of takes me back pretty quick. So it's a fun starter. That way I don't have to think of a whole bunch of random opening questions. I got a single one, and based on that person's energy, it kickstarts it.
Beautiful. When I had my Hay House radio show, I remember in the beginning, I was very diligent with my questions, and I would even ask them to send me questions, and we would have a rehearsal. And then over the years, and I'm sure you experienced this as well, like I just would have a compelling conversation. And for me, that became so authentic just to dive in. Like I might have a few questions lined up, but then boom, we were off and running. So I think that comes with time. And
time has to. I read somebody somewhere. Somebody said, well, how do you prepare best for interviews? It was a very high level, like a Tonight Show guest or Tonight Show host kind of person. I can't think of who it was. And it goes, I stopped preparing because my curiosity didn't come with me when I brought my questions. And so the idea was like, I go, I love this because if I can come with my curiosity, I can have a genuine conversation. Because then I ask questions I would have never asked if I was waiting to make sure I could fit in this question here. My brain can't be in two places. And so for me, a lot of it was like, all right, I want to know as much as I can about this person at first glance, first read, and then I want to hop in. And then the conversation is an actual conversation because I'm turning into like a 5-year-old. And what's this? And why is that? And where'd that come from? And why would you do it? You just ask actual questions, and then the fun conversation unfolds. And then they enjoy it. And if they enjoy it, it's back and forth in a good manner.
I love it. And what for me, when I would do my radio show on Hay House, and then I also had a show on Jolt Radio for many years, and I used it as a lead generation as well. Throughout the show, I would say different things, sometimes run contests, do giveaways. What are some of the things that you have noticed works well to use your podcast as a lead gen?
So there's a couple ways. One, you can choose to use as a lead gen by just dropping your own ads in the middle. So like we have ads that we run for companies. And then outside of that, like I'll at times be my own ad, like sponsored by, and you go like, oh, that's weird. It's not. Have somebody else's voice do it. Like just, you could literally have like your husband or wife come in and give a little voice or hire a voice actor, right? But there's also like the shifts that are daily podcasts. I started realizing that I don't have to lead gen in the podcast itself. I can lead gen to get you there. And so, like, for example, I have keynotes coming up in Dallas, I want to say in a few days. And for me, when I go to that, the very end of it, I kind of put this simple QR code up that's like, hey, if you want to get a little bit of me every day in a daily podcast, go to this QR code. And then they opt in, they get a link that takes them directly to the podcast. They can listen to it from there. And we text them every single day. But in that, they now are part of a list where I can contact them. So I was getting lead gen before they even listened to the episode. And it's because I found a place to talk to them first to get them to opt in. I like that option for me with that podcast because they're only getting it when they've seen me talk. They've already seen me and engaged with me, or they've watched something I'm on, and then they go, I want to hear more, as opposed to looking at some random, ad on Instagram. It's like, listen to this daily podcast. I'm like, who's that dude? I want to listen to his podcast, right? So the idea is like I put that into that place before. It's kind of like a barrier. It's worked amazingly. We built a cool list. We have great conversations. And then also at the end of the podcast, there's some, call to action type stuff. But that's pretty much it. I think there's also something to having people engage. I know on Spotify nowadays, you can work in, if you choose to send people there, you can work in Q&As, you can work in conversations. And if you're in any way able to start a conversation, that becomes a great place to go and, expand past the actual interview. You could do stuff where you go to Instagram and you have a live with the guest if you're on, or with yourself saying, hey, a new episode's out, and you can DM me this word and I'll give you the show notes, something like that. What else is there? There's a few different things that we've done in the past. You could also go the route of, with the podcast, like releasing, you can do that same thing. Show notes. It could be somewhere. If you want the show notes, hit this link, go here. You can send people different places. There's a lot of little ways we've tried.
I used to do like a toolkit, a giveaway for a toolkit. And so I would figure out what it was that the guest would want to give away. And instead of them doing just a lead gen on their own, because a lot of times like your guests will come on and then they'll give your listeners a free gift. So I figured, let's just join forces. And so I would do jennifergrace.com/free tools. And then I would prepare some sort of, say it was on conscious communication, a conscious communication toolkit from my guest. And then that would go to there, we would lead gen together. So that was an interesting way to have both of us. And that helped also have guests come on and say, well, we're going to lead gen and we're going to share the leads that come in from the podcast today. And when I was on Hay House Radio, that's really what grew my business exponentially, by doing those little toolkits afterwards.
It's big. Whatever you choose to do, I recommend you guys do the same thing over and over again. I used to go to this church that to this day, I was not a fan of it at the time, but I still to this day can talk about it because it was that consistent every single time the end of a sermon was done. He would always say, and make sure to get baptized, join the growth track, and become, what do they call them? Part of the dream team. Baptized, growth track, dream team. He lets you know there's 3 steps to get to a certain point every single time. And so eventually, after someone's been hearing it 3, 4, 5, 6 times, we even we're like, all right, let's go. We'll get baptized again. And then let's go ahead and hit the growth track. And we did all these things. We didn't do the dream team because after a while, we're like, this is not for me. So we left the church. But the thing was, like, business wise, it was powerful. It was simple because it was the clean, same thing over and over again. So if you can do that where someone doesn't hear something different, that's going to be best for you long run.
Yeah. And how do you find your guests? What is your kind of method to that madness?
There's 2 processes. Well, there's 2 stages, I think. The first stage is you go find people. You literally go out to the world and you just start asking people to get in your show. The best time to do that's when somebody has a thing they want to do. Like for me, the last year, I think the first half of the year, I wanted to get on podcasts. Second half, I was like, I don't have enough time for all the podcasts. And so what happened was I probably put this hold on. And then now the team came back. It's like, Anthony, you kind of need to get back on more podcasts again. As you start this new dark work launch, you need to kind of get more scheduled. Great. So I am way more apt because of what I have coming up to answer yes to a podcast. And so the thing is you have to kind of find the people you want to talk to and then keep an eye on what they're doing. If they see something's launching or got a book coming out or those kind of things, they are more apt to take anything than the time they're not, right?
Correct.
So you got to find that. And then the other thing would be something where it's always great to have people refer you, right? It's kind of a big thing, but you got to be really, really good to get people to refer you, which means you get on the show, like make it easy for the guest, make sure they enjoy talking to you, have a good conversation so that they feel cool introducing you to one of their friends. It's a great way. There's nothing like a referral portion. Now you can go and pay for people to get you on podcasts, all that kind of stuff. The one thing I'm not a fan of with that is if you don't have a really distinct process for what you're going to cover, how you're going to cover it, and how you're going to get people to join a program for you at some point beyond that. You're going to get leads from someone else's podcast. You're not going to have a lot of people come on. So most people like pay to get guests on and pay to have that thing. And it's like, if you don't know the pathway, you're paying with a hope someone's going to somehow listen to your podcast and some sponsor comes on. It's no guarantee. So make sure you have that in mind. Outside of that, I think what happens is you get some spin. In the speaking world, spin means if somebody comes on, somebody else wants them on or wants to get on that podcast. And so in the beginning, I would go out and reach out to people randomly that I would see and be like, hey, you want to get in the podcast? And after a while, they would take my content, share it. Somebody else would go, oh, I like this content. What episode, what podcast is this? Oh, it's the Oshift podcast. And you start getting people coming to you saying, hey, can I get on your show? Which we get emails every single day wanting to get in the show, which is totally cool. So in the beginning, it's you doing a lot of legwork, then momentum builds where people start asking you to get on. You still have your dream 100 clients here, we'll call it guests you want to get on, you'll shoot for, but there are so many people who can be on a podcast. There are too many. There are thousands and thousands of people that are trying to get on podcasts. So and they're all, for the most part, they're great people doing things in pockets of the world you'd never know existed. So the first part is go out there and find people. And then in time, if you do it properly, people will actually come find you, because I want to say there's only, of all the podcasts out there that are live, I want to say maybe 77 to 80% of them are inactive. So there's not a lot of people actively podcasting. They'll start them and then they just die. So if you can be the one that stays consistent, you start to kind of float to the top.
Beautiful. I remember a lot of times, like I would have people that I really would dream to be on their podcast. And then I would leverage first having them on my podcast. And then they were like, all right. And it was kind of like that reciprocity. So I would have to be a guest on my show. And then they would be like, I'd love to have you on my show. I'm like, oh, real? I wasn't even thinking
that. Yeah, happens all the time.
You brought that up. So yeah, that was great. That was a great way.
I do it too. They do the same thing to me, vice versa. Why not, man? It's always good to kind of, because podcasting goes beyond the podcast, to be honest. Like there are connections I have that have gotten me speeches and gotten me clients that have come from me just being on someone's podcast. I've actually had people, I went on their podcast and they hired me to be their coach, right? So there's more that comes beyond podcasting. Here's what it really was for me in the beginning. I didn't have an intention of building it for business. I literally was like, you know what? My wife and friends do not want to talk to me about this stuff, but I want to talk to people who want to talk about this stuff. What if I start this thing that allows me to have a reason to talk to people? And that was it. 300, almost 400 episodes ago, I was a reason to talk to people. And that's what it turned into in the beginning. And it kind of built from there, but it was just a curiosity thing, to be quite honest.
Yeah. I think it's, when something is the impetus of it is just because it's a passion, that's when it's authentic and that's when it becomes really successful. I just remembered my all-time favorite podcast right now is Smartless. If anybody hasn't checked that out, it's with Will Arnett, Jason Bateman, and Sean Hayes from Will and Grace. And literally they started it just for fun. These very famous, comedic actors. And of course I am a comedic actor. So like, I love that kind of stuff. In COVID, and they were bored and they weren't working and all the sets were down and now it's like it's like number one podcast out there. It's
never heard of it.
Incredible. So funny, Anthony. You would love it.
All right. I'm
all right. So as we wrap up, I'm gonna surprise you.
All right.
Bad. This is how I used to close my show. I would play the first response game. And it's pretty easy. We're just going to go with a few questions. What would you pick for your last meal?
Hawaiian time. Number 6, Elite. There's a spot in Eugene, Oregon that I went to when I was in college there. And they had this, it's like a chicken and I don't know, macaroni and rice. It's banging. If God was like, son, you have one meal for the rest of eternity, it would be a number 6 Elite from Hawaiian time.
Nice. Mine is linguine with clam sauce. Okay. If you could have dinner with anyone famous, dead or alive, who would it be?
How famous is my first question?
As famous as you want. Maybe not
Uh,
grandma.
Dead or alive?
Dead or alive.
Man, I don't have a first. My first response is a bad response. I'm not going to say it. Uh, I'll give you my second response. So I would go. This is the only thing. This is the truth. Dead or alive would be future Anthony. And here's why: I don't get everybody else's brains. I don't get my wife's brain. I mean, I can sit and hang with you and like you, but I don't get. I don't. I wouldn't know your brain. The one brain I would understand without a question of a doubt would be mine. So I go, what if I got to meet me in the future and he ran me through all the things I did or didn't do or what the world was through his perspective so I can understand it.
Like my future self meditation. There you go.
You can call it that. Yeah. Just think
That's
about how many
right.
people you talk to and you're in the middle of the conversation, you go, what the hell are you thinking right now? Like some people are off, man. And I go, I don't know your brain. I love you. Like my wife, I'll tell her things and she'll look at me and I'm like, you really don't get what I'm saying. So I want to know that the person I'm talking to gets me.
I love it. All right, two more. If
Two
you
more.
could do any other profession besides what you used to do, football, and what you're
Yeah.
doing now, whether you're good at it or not, it doesn't matter. What would it be?
At first, it was boxing because when I was a competitive athlete, I wanted like the idea of being in the ring and just all on my shoulders. I like that. And then now at this point, when I want to save my body, I have this weird idea. And we talked about it, of wanting to do acting, not because I want to be in some movie, but just I have this itch to do things that are abnormal to many. So the
I love
idea of acting for most people is like, oh God, I'm never going to get in front of a camera and do that. I'm like, why not? Like, I'm going to try to get my pilot's license this year. Like, why not? So the idea of acting would be cool to be able to kind of play around and see if I could do make believe on screen.
Okay. And the final question, if you could just drop everything, grab your wife, go anywhere in the world, no kids, where would you go?
My living room.
I love it.
I'm not
No
gonna go
place
nowhere.
like home.
I mean,
You're
because
probably sick of traveling right now. You were
after you've been to beaches, here's the thing. I would love to go a lot of places to explore to see that, but I'm dead serious. Like after you go to like all the beaches you go to, like I've probably been to like 30 cool beaches. It's the same thing. There's a dude who has jet skis. There's a dude with the parasail. There's somebody selling margaritas. There's
You
someone
sound like my boyfriend. I've
they're
dragged him
hawking
around the
necklaces.
world. It's all the same shit. I'm good.
It's the same thing, man. And so like for me, it'd be just sit in the living room and chill out and hang out because that is genuine. That's for me, that's life. All the rest of the stuff is cool, high points, but I love the idea of like the majority of my life can I be in vacation in that, and for me that is it.
Beautiful. Well, Anthony, thank you so much for
Welcome.
taking time out of your amazingly busy schedule
Very
to be
welcome.
with me and everybody else at the Shine Your Light Summit. Mwah. I love
Welcome.
you, man. I'll see you soon.
Take care.
Bye. Thank you, everybody who is just signing in. Make sure you have pen and paper. We've got lots in store for us, but this is our first seminar, and it's called The Power of the Podcast. So I would love to hear one of these from you all in the chat, because you may be at different stages right now of thinking about doing a podcast. Maybe you have no desire to, but you can either chat in, what is a theme that you might have for your podcast? Or maybe you want to chat in why you want to launch a podcast, or what would be the end result you'd want to achieve by having a podcast. I'd love to see for everybody. So self-development, being consistent and committed, transformation, 1 year of not giving an FUCK. I love that, Amanda. Communication, transformational, self-development, deep emotional healing around everyday events. Jesse, storytelling. I love talking to people, learning new things, an inspirational podcast, helping others, mother and daughter communication, theme addiction and recovery, result connection and conversation, health to help others. Amazing. Awesome. Awesome. Beautiful. So there are a lot of benefits to podcasting. One is if you are an expert or a coach, it's a great way to attract new leads. Just like Anthony and I were chatting, there are so many different ways that you can leverage your podcast to get names and emails, whether that is through giving away, an awesome toolkit, show notes, doing contests, and it's a way to really list build. It makes you an authority in your field. You know, when somebody asks you what you do, oh, I'm a coach, I'm a this, I host a podcast, you know, it gives you a little bit more credibility. Helps you grow your audience of prospects, gives you credibility, builds up a valuable library of content. So podcasting, you know, creating content for social media, as we know, can be exhausting sometimes. And so when you do a podcast, there's a really cool way where you could take the transcript of your podcast, turn that into a blog. You could be shooting that podcast and going live on Instagram, simultaneously videotaping it for content to hack up little tips and tools on YouTube, on TikTok, on Reels. You could also, you know, do long format, short format. You could then just take the audio and put it onto iTunes. So literally just doing one single show of either you just doing the podcast on your own or interviewing somebody else, that 1 hour show could probably give you enough content for 2 months of social media when you just hack it up into small little bite sizes, whether, like I said, it's blogs or little videos or audio. So it's things that you can put in your newsletters, things that you can sprinkle all around. So that's like a really great way to handle creating content, is to become a podcaster. It's also a wonderful way to promote and sell your products and services. And of course, you always want to be, you know, relaxed about that. You don't want to be hitting people over the head throughout your whole podcast, that it becomes just like a sales funnel. But you can do that really eloquently and mentioning things that you're up to. I remember on Hay House Radio, I would just mention that I was, you know, doing my next 8-week Clarity Catalyst course, and here's some information. Go to jennifergrace.com/clarity. And the next thing you know, it would fill up my roster. Why? Because those were not cold leads. Those were listeners. Those were people who were tuning in every single week over years to listen to me. Yeah, those were actually hot leads. So it's a way to warm up your audience, establishing your expertise, and it really helps you develop strong relationships with prospects, with potential clients. Because, you know, if we just write a blog or we just do a Facebook post, people aren't getting your personality from that. Yes, it can come through a little bit in the writing, but say you hate video. Podcasting, you don't have to do video, but they're going to hear your voice. They're going to become more connected to who you are. So I really think that it's a wonderful tool for so many reasons. You don't have to go, you know, out at it, be like, I'm going to have the #1 podcast in America. You know, more thinking of it of a way to warm up an audience and to communicate in such a way, especially if you don't like video, that it's audio. Look at all this. There's more benefits. So what else can we do with podcasting? You can repurpose your show content, like I said, into ebooks and blog posts and articles. Have it reach new audience with your guests. So every time I would do a podcast, I would make a cute little, you know, marketing thing with myself and my guest. I would send it to my guest. I would ask them if they could post that, you know, with a link when our podcast went live, so that, you know, I was having on there people in the beginning that had way bigger followings than I did. And so they were promoting it to their lists, and then they were coming and listening to my podcast. So it was a great way to reach new audiences because of the guests that I were having coming on, sharing, you know, the podcast with their list. This can also leverage your relationship with your strategic partners. So say you want to start doing events at a yoga studio or a wellness center or a chiropractic office. Have your chiropractor on as a guest, have the, owner of the yoga studio on as a guest. Let them share about, their goods and services so that you're really doing that back and forth with the people that you're working with. Connects with industry experts who would never take your call otherwise. Podcasts are great ways of talking to people who would normally not give you the time of day. And, it's amazing. Anthony was talking about this. When somebody is launching their new book, their new program, their new podcast, no matter what it is, if they are famous or semi-famous and they're in the middle of a launch, they want to be on as many podcasts as humanly possible. So getting somebody in launch time is way easier than their downtime. So that is something to keep in mind if you're going to be going after people, who have really big followings. And then, of course, it can lead to higher profile speaking engagements. For myself, somebody would hear my podcast and then reach out to me to be a panelist, to be a keynote speaker, because they were getting a taste of what it was like to hear me speak. Anthony as well shared that his podcast has led to incredible opportunities and speaking engagements. When you put together a speaker's one sheet and you're, reaching out to different events and conferences, giving them a link to listen to your podcast is a great way for them to really get to know, how you speak, the things that you're interested in, especially if, say, there is a conference, it's a women's conference or something about female empowerment. Send them one of your episodes where you talk about that particular topic, and so that they could see that you're perfect for their conference. You're in the world of this. You can use this for bartering, right? Have me on your show, I'll have you on my show. Or if I come and promote you, Mr. Photographer, on my podcast, will you then do my pictures for me for free? What a great idea. If I promote your, hair salon as a sponsor, will you do my hair for free? You never know. Always good to look at the people in your world that you would be paying things to and seeing how you can use your podcast for bartering. Sometimes people are more likely to want to do business with you because you host a show, because it just adds that little level of creativity. And a successful show can lead to unexpected streams of revenue. Another great thing is, say you want to promote one of your guests, programs, and maybe you're going to be promoting that on multiple shows, not only on the one that they came on there with you. So you could do affiliate marketing with them. You could say, hey, Anthony, I know that you're about to launch this amazing program called Dark Work, going into the dark so that you can step into the light. I would love to be an affiliate of yours. I would love to be promoting this. And when you are doing business in the world of personal development, and it's called JV, joint ventures, a lot of times it's a 50-50 split. So anybody that, comes from your affiliate link, Anthony or whoever the person is going to pay you 50% of whatever they make. So there's also great opportunities when you're first starting out to also leverage off of other guests and make money on their service and products. I was a guest one time, and this is what made me want to do it. Amazing. So what are the first steps to launching a podcast? Step number one, come up with a concept. What is this podcast going to be about? Is this going to be a self-love podcast? Is this going to be a podcast on how to run a business, a coaching business? Is this going to be a podcast, on relationships? And then come up with a working title, a tagline, and the length. You know, do you want this to be a 20-minute podcast, a 30-minute podcast, a 1-hour podcast? Podcasts go really fast. Sometimes we think, oh gosh, I could never do this for an hour. And then it's over before you know it. You really can just dive into a conversation with somebody. So don't be shy about doing a longer format, but just see what feels right and works better for you. And then when you're about to kind of solidify the name, I would put it out there to maybe a group of peers, family members, you know, different people in different parts of your life, and maybe come up with 3 versions of the name and tagline, and take a little market research, do a little vote to see which one people are resonating with the most. Step 2, before committing to a theme, check and make sure there's enough to talk about. You know, somebody wrote, I think in the chat, like mother-daughter relationships. You know, can you brainstorm a list of at least 10 to 15 episodes that have to do with mother-daughter relationships? And if not, maybe you just do, it's a podcast about relationships. And a few of the episodes could be about mother-daughter, but then you're kind of opening it up and broadening it so that you have more topics that you can cover. Next is to look for similar podcasts on iTunes, examine their popularity, such as number of reviews, number of followers on social media. Make sure that this is a topic that people are interested in. Now, of course, like Anthony was saying, you want to, you know, bring forth your expertise and what makes it different. It's not that you're about to copy what everybody else is doing. It's more about looking at, wow, you know, I see that this is a hot topic. Now I'm going to do my take on it. And then make a list for 10 dream guests. Like, you know, I'm not sure if you should put Michelle Obama on that list and like Elizabeth Gilbert, but why not? You never know. But what's your dream list? And then what are the 10 low-hanging fruit guests? And then, of course, you know, my trainers all know that I am very low-hanging fruit. If you ever need me, Mama's here. I'll be on your podcast. I'll be happy to. All right. Then you want to think about your format. Okay. What will your podcast be like and how will it be structured? Here are some ideas. It could be interview style where you're bringing on somebody different every single week. It could just be you by yourself. It's just a solo podcast. You're just sharing tools and information, storytelling. You could have more than one host. For example, Smartless, which is my favorite podcast, there are 3 hosts on that podcast, and they have a really fun format, which is, like I said, it's Jason Bateman, Will Arnett, and Sean Hayes, and they're all comedic actors. And what they do is one of them will bring the guest on. The other 2 have no idea who it's going to be. And so they're in the dark. And then they introduce the person without saying the name, and they're kind of like guessing. And then boom, oh, it's Bradley Cooper. First of all, that's my favorite Smartless episode. It's Bradley Cooper on the Smartless podcast, and he is so vulnerable and so authentic. Like, he blew me away. It was unbelievable, that episode. And then they're just like, they raw dog it. So there's no pre-planned questions. Like, Jason Bateman is there literally with like Wikipedia, and they're just pulling stuff out of Wikipedia and asking these random questions. It's really, really funny. So if you've got friends who are hilarious, do a podcast with them, you know, and sometimes you can mix it all up, right? It could be interview one week, it could be solo, you could bring on an extra host. It could be narrative and storytelling hybrid. I also used to have sometimes musical guests when I was on Jolt Radio, or I would play music during breaks and we would dance in the studio. It was very fun. So that's all about formatting. And then preparing for your podcast. Step 1, get a good microphone, like a Blue Yeti. good audio recording software like Audacity. You want to outline your first 8 shows, thinking of what is the theme for the show, what is the topic, what are the guests, what are the questions that you're going to ask them. Be prepared in the beginning. It was a radio show, so it was on a radio station, so we were allowed to play the music on the radio station, obviously. So maybe, Amanda, that's something you might want to look it up. Create a 1-page media kit, and I'm going to show you mine to invite guests. Get a scheduling software like Appointment Core, Calendly. This way, when you're going to have your guest on, you want to make sure you've sent them an appointment. It's in the calendar. There's a reminder sent to them. You really want to be organized about this so your guest doesn't forget that today is the podcast day, and then you show up and nobody's there. And then you get to decide if you're just going to do this live once a week, or are you going to batch your interviews once a month? For example, you might set up one Friday a month and then invite 4 different guests throughout the day, get them all in the can, and then just, throughout the month, launch them once a week. I used to do mine all live. My Hay House radio show was live. My Jolt radio show was live. When I did Hay House radio for 3 years in a row, it was every week. And let me tell you something, that was a lot. I loved being on Jolt radio because it was every other week. So you get to decide, do you want to release your podcast once a month, every other week, once a week? But you want to make that decision powerfully so that it's consistent, so that your listeners know what to expect. And are you going to have a video and an audio, or just audio? And you can make those powerful decisions. You got to get to know your guests. So before they come on, or even before you invite them to be a podcast guest, look at their media, social media, and website to see where their expertise lies. Make sure this fits in with your show concept and it's going to be interesting. And then research any videos that they have put out on YouTube, any podcasts that they have been guests on. So go and listen to them be a guest. And this way, that's going to help you think of questions. You can hear what other people might have asked them and remix those questions so that they're fresh. Identify 4 to 10 questions that you can ask them based off of their work that would tie into your show topics. So you really want to look, research, and identify. So here's an example of a 1-page podcast media kit. So this you create as a podcast host. This is something that you would send, okay? You would say, okay, in the upper left-hand corner, put some links. If you were to click on these links, it would go to the episodes. Me with John Sally, who's a 4-time NBA, champion winner. Koya Webb, who is a woman. She's also a Hay House author, has over 1 million followers on social media. And then Captain Sandy, she was on Below Deck. So of course, I'm going to bring forth, 3 celebrities. And if you know any celebrities, and if you know any people of influence, maybe do that first, because a lot of people will go, oh, look, John Sally was on her show. Oh, Koya Webb was on her show. Okay, I'm going to be in good company. So if you can call in any favors in the beginning, that would be amazing. Then you want to put a little bit about the show. Mine says Jennifer Grace Show is a place to get unstuck, make shifts happen, and not take life so seriously. A combination of transformational tools, experts who know their stuff, and a touch of comedy to brighten your day. And then, of course, you want to share with them what your following is, because it's all about eyeballs and earballs. They're going to want to know that if they're a guest on your show, people are going to be able to be listening to them. Now, obviously, in the beginning of your career, you're not going to have these big numbers, but this is something to grow into. And then how they can connect with you. just links to your website. And something like this can be very easily done in Canva. I created that in Canva in like 2 seconds. All righty. So who is ready for our first Shine Your Light prize? Da-na-na-na-na-na-na. Type in me. Yes. All right. Let's see. What is the prize going to be? What is the very first prize? You guys got to get ready here. For those of you that came in late, you may not be able to win this prize. And that's what happens when you come late. Sorry. So we are going to pull a question from whatever session we were just in. And it means you have to have been really, really listening. Whoever types in the answer first is going to win the prize. You're so funny, Maggie. She goes, why should I listen to you? All right, here we go. Here's the prize. Drum roll. This is the prize, not the question yet. Don't get that excited. The prize is the Podcast Catalyst. So this year in 2023, I am launching an entire Shine Your Light Academy where you can take classes with me and other amazing people. One of them is the Podcast Catalyst. There'll be the book catalyst, the retreat catalyst, the social media catalyst, the speakers catalyst with Joe and I. So that's my whole 2023, is to help my coaches and experts take their entire business to the next level. And I'm so excited. Over the last 5 years, I have taught these classes kind of here and there and everywhere, but I've never put it into an entire academy. So I'm very, very excited to be launching the Shine Your Light Academy. So this comes right out of this, and it's the Podcast Catalyst. The prize value is $1,500. How to produce and launch your first podcast to inspire your community, propel your platform, led by moi, JG. So what will you learn in this beautiful program? Be held accountable for creating the theme of your podcast, guided how to record and produce your podcast, how to find amazing guests and formulate powerful questions, be instructed. So if you are not a technology person, you know that working with me is fun because I throw you in. I don't care that you don't know how to do this. And we all figure it out, right? Nobody drowns. We all jump in the pool and we figure it out together. So if you've always been intimidated by the technology, I am going to teach you step by step how to plug the microphone in, how to put it with the Audacity, how to upload it to iTunes, Facebook, YouTube, IG, across all the channels to get your message to the masses, and then understand how to use it for lead generation to build your following, monetize your business, and then, of course, to launch your podcast. So we don't want to hear how amazing this class is from me. The question's coming. Hold on. I asked 2 of my really amazing students who have taken the Podcast Catalyst. One of them is Janet Namaste. How freaking adorable is she? She has an amazing podcast that is still going strong, where she interviews lots of different healers and mystics and shamans. You definitely got to check out her podcast. She is one of my former students. And she says, taking the Podcast Catalyst has literally helped me take my coaching and spiritual intuitive career to the absolute next level. In just 8 short weeks, I created my show, booked my first 2 guests, launched my podcast with the help of none other than Miss Jennifer Grace. This course made the overwhelm of launching a podcast so simple because she broke it down in easy steps. All I had to do was follow along, and then poof, I had a podcast. The doors have opened for me since launching that they have been mind-blowing. Plus, it has really helped me increase my reach internationally and grow my client base. I love, 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 love this class. And one other one here is Jeanette. She says, saying yes to being a part of the Podcast Academy was one of the best decisions I've made. My podcast, A Cup of Clarity, is now entering its 3rd season, reaching people in 71 different countries over 1,500 cities across the world. It wouldn't have been possible without the knowledge that I required from the podcast course. Each week, Jennifer took us step by step on how to launch a successful podcast. We discovered our why, zeroed in on our message, and learned the behind the scenes technical ins and outs of podcasting, and did it all in a supportive community of like-minded souls. If you're thinking your message into the world, getting it into the world, the Podcast Academy is the place to start. Jeanette Million, she's a clarity coach in Miami. All righty. Here we go. Get your fingers ready. You guys ready? It's the first one. You better take typing lessons, guys. I don't know. I'm nervous. I'm a little nervous. I'm excited. Question. What is the name of Anthony Truck's podcast? The first one we spoke about. All right, I see it. It went in. It went in. Hold on. I got to go back. Hold on. Who was the... Elisa! Elisa, you're welcome. Awesome. Unmute yourself, honey.
Yay! Thank you.
And if you didn't win, you can book a call with me and find out more about how you can take the book catalyst, the podcast catalyst, the speakers, the retreat, the social media. Just go to jennifergrace.com/chat. We can get on a one-on-one call this week, and I can tell you all about it. And of course, if you're here at the summit or listening to the recording, you're going to get up to 40% discounts on all of these courses when you book a bundle.